read a lot of Rick Rubin stuff and listened to his stuff. And one of the things he talks about is just being open, just being receptive, paying attention to what comes your way and not ruling anything out.
Hey there, this is Steve Postel from the immediate family and from the Our House Band. We are on All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.
Hello and welcome back to All Over the Place. I'm your host, Eric Porvoznik, and very exciting news as of this morning, hanging over my left shoulder here. Mark Daly, former guest of ours, Two Timers Club. Mark was announced earlier today that he's going to be joining the Darkness on tour later this year in the States. Very, very excited for Mark and the Ravens. And unfortunately, nothing close by to Phoenix yet. Did you hear that, Mark? Yet. So hopefully we'll be able to get the guys to come a little bit closer than Los Angeles right now, or maybe even Vegas. But right now, they're going to be touring the country with the Darkness. Very excited for Mark, and hopefully we'll have him back on the show to talk about that. Until then, though, I want to welcome back to the show my co-host, Jim Culver. How are you, Jim?
I'm good, and I'd like to echo your congratulations to Mark. Good on you.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited for them and the Darkness. Cool, man. I got to see the Darkness open for the Crew way back when on what was supposed to be the Crew's next to last show, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. Actually, we'll wait for Marty to get back before we start talking about the Crew again. So, yeah, and just as always, folks, thank you so much. We continue to grow in 2025. So many new subscribers since the last show. Thank you all for that. Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And right now, though, we've got a new guest coming onto the show, and John Oates of the band formerly known as Hall & Oates described his voice as one you will never forget. He's got a new album out on Quarter Valley Records called Must Be Blue. I want to welcome to the show David Starr. Welcome.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure on our end. And Out of Blue, I just want to, Must Be Blue. The evolution that you've had over your past few albums, did not see this coming. The guitars are snarling on Must Be Blue. Talk to us about the evolution of the guitar from your last album to this one.
Well, here kind of my journey. I started out as a singing drummer, so I like to think of myself as a recovering drummer. But I was a singing drummer since I was a kid, and along the way I was around good guitar players, and their instruments were always laying around, and my brother was a good guitar player. So I've been inching towards the guitar into things for a long time. Now, I must say on this record, I didn't play all the guitars, but I did play some. But this album came about because I grew up playing this music. I grew up playing the blues, playing R&B, playing all kinds of stuff because I grew up playing cover stuff, And along the way, I've written a lot of things that had that kind of blues-infused feel, if you like. So, 2 or 3 years ago, I thought we ought to make an album that's kind of intentionally bluesy and see what happens. And I'm real happy with the way things turned out.
As they're saying all over the descriptions of you, bluesicana. And
well, yeah, and that came about because when I first started going to Nashville to work on records down there, I'd done 3 albums up here. Kind of on my own in my studio on different formats. You guys have been in this business where you start out, you got tape, then you go to some kind of hard disk machine, then you go to some other kind of machine, then you go to computer. It's like I had all this stuff. And so in the early 2000s, I put 3 records out that were just me playing everything. And that helped me kind of get an idea where I wanted to go. When I first went to Nashville, I think in 2013 or so, and I cut some demos. They had more of a country rock feel to them because, well, it's Nashville, and that's what the guys play.
That will happen.
Yeah, but that was a good experience, and I met some great people on those sessions. And then as time went on, I began to get kind of a direction, and I'd started playing solo out by myself, just booking gigs all by myself, going out and doing it. Instead of trying to book with a band. When you do that, the sound kind of evolves sort of organically. So, acoustic guitar and harmonica and me, and that was kind of it, Then I played a lot with Eric Stuckey, who's a good friend of mine from out this way, who's a mandolin player. But, the Americana thing kind of gets attached to you if you don't have any other genre. And I remember asking John Oates after we worked on our first record, I said, some of these people on the, guys like you, radio guys, are going, well, what genre is this? And he said, just tell them it's good music, And but somewhere along the line, the bluesicana thing came up, and partially on this album, it's because even though it's a real bluesy record, Eric is still on there playing mandolin, which is kind of unique on an album like this. And there's quite a bit of acoustic guitar, which is also gives it a little bit more of an organic feel. So, it just seemed like it fit. Bluesicana.
I want to get into radio. You say just tell them it's good music, but radio, and don't want to get into all of the logistic that goes through, like how I think music has just been balkanized so much, and you just don't get the mixture of things that you used to get. But social media has helped so much, and YouTube, and talk to us about how that's been helpful for a guy like you who just can't who gets pigeonholed as either Americana or just like a no description kind of thing. But how has social media helped you reach a wider audience when in a time when radio doesn't know what to do with anybody as unique as you?
Yeah, well, I think what social media does, in addition to all the bad stuff it does, it gives you the kind of the opportunity in a way to reinvent yourself in real time. I started talking about this blues album a long time ago, and by the time it came out, I had people going, well, we were kind of ready for that because you were talking about it. So it gives you a runway in a sense to ramp up and make that pivot if that's what you want to do. I like the idea that, like right now, I've got 3 or 4 new tunes I've been working on. Kind of been thinking about just doing some acoustic versions live and putting them online just to see what kind of reaction I get. It's a very much a live, instantaneous medium. And again, for all the silliness and the stupidity that's out there, it gives guys like me a way to reach a lot of people pretty quickly, almost spontaneously. So I try to use it for good, if you get my drift, rather than evil, as it gets done so often.
Are you finding a lot of crossover with audiences in terms of that kind of genre shift? Like, are you finding the same audiences are following you from, more folksy Americana up to blues, or you feel like there's kind of 2 separate audiences that you're marketing toward?
Well, I think people are pretty receptive. They're pretty open to changes. I noticed a friend of mine in Nashville. I guess he just got through playing on a Paul Carrack album that's a country record. Man, I love Paul Carrack. Anything he does is fine by me. So, if you go back in the days, I'm going to say that some of us are not as young as we used to be. I remember, when Dylan went to Nashville. I remember when Ray Charles did a country record, and it was just intentionally, Ray Charles shifted from doing what he did as a rule, the R&B and the soul stuff. So I'm going to do a country record. And my mother and father played that in my house. I distinctly remember thinking, that's country music the way I like it. Hear Ray Charles do it, So I think people are pretty forgiving, especially nowadays, because everybody pivots whenever they want to. So yeah, I think when the thing we're into right now, this must be blues sort of era for me. We did a record during the pandemic called Touchstones, and it had a bunch of cover songs on it. I think it had 11 country, maybe 10 covers and 1 original or something. But the most streamed song on there was an old Gladys Knight song called "I've Got to Use My Imagination," written by Jerry Goffin and another guy. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, all of a sudden that was a real bluesy. Our treatment of it was very bluesy and rootsy, and all electric. And I thought, people are digging that. Maybe we ought to explore that a little further. So that was, for me, that was kind of the impetus to start thinking about this record. People went for it, and I'm going to follow them.
And I'm glad you brought up Ray Charles's country album. And this is not to bag on Beyonce, but I'd like to think that Ray Charles, in a more open world back at the time, would have won the Grammy for Best Country Album.
Oh man, I just remember my mother putting that thing on our big old giant stereo and her playing it. What did I Can't Stop Loving You? I mean, I remember I can hear it in my head right now, and I thought, that's cool, because all I'd ever heard him do is What I Say and that kind of stuff. Even thinking back to then, it's like, well, you can do anything you want if you do it well. And I think, it'd be weird to hear U2 do a country record, for instance. So there's some people, I think their path is so clearly laid out that it's more difficult. But I go back to what John told me. It's good music. Just do it, So.
And you two did flirt with country when they had Johnny Cash on The Wanderer.
That's true. That's true.
Well, electronica country, but you put Johnny on there, it's gonna. Well, and you get to Johnny, who's I think the definition of Americana, but country as well. But
Right.
again, a rabbit hole we don't really need to go down to defining the Man in Black.
For me, Americana, when I think of it, I think of the band.
There you go.
Levon and Robbie and those guys, and I knew Levon reasonably well because he had Ken there in the Northwest Arkansas where I grew up, and I got to spend time with him on a number of occasions. Went out and had pancakes at 3 a.m, and just talked to him. And that to me, that I go back and listen to music from Big Pink or that Brown Band album, and I think that's Americana to me, because that was an infusion of all those different blues and country and the Canadian stuff and the Cajun stuff. It's almost magic where that came from. And I don't know if you did it again today, it'd be imitation, but that was original stuff.
I think Jason Isbell, is the guy who best defines Americana right now, and
he's
an influence from the band.
He's great. He really is.
And on that accidental Jason Isbell note, I was fortunate to see him at my introduction to Red Rocks was him a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you're not too far from there, but you've got in Cedaredge, you've got your little Starr's guitars. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about? I'm guessing that you're seated in there now with all those fabulous axes around you.
Well, this is kind of the back of the shop where I work on guitars and where we store cases and that sort of thing. I came to this little town I came to this town in 1996 just looking for property to live back out west. I'd lived in Aspen in the early 80s and then moved back to Arkansas. And I found this little town. It was quiet. There wasn't much going on. But once I got here and moved the store here, I began to kind of hunger for doing live music promotion again. And I'd done some of that in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so I would rent a space down the street to do concerts. And I had John McEwen and I had John Oates and I had some folks like Dana Cooper and Tom Kimmel and Michael Lilly and Carla Bonoff came and played a couple of times. And over the years began to develop not only a reputation for having a kind of an interesting guitar store in an unusual small town, but doing these concerts. And so that morphed into my wife and I getting involved with a group of people and developing what is now the Grand Mesa Arts and Events Center, which is across the street from my shop. And this weekend, Starr's Guitars, my store, is one of the big sponsors for the Grand Mesa Songwriter Festival. So I'm a big believer that not only a store like this that advocates the arts and people playing music, but I think that our art center and this festival and everything we do around it, I think it can lift a town up and it can bring a town together. And there were some naysayers, but man, it's changed this little town, and I'm really, really proud of it. We've got an annex that has a pottery studio and an art studio for kids. We've got an art gallery. We've got a 150 seat venue for shows. Last year, John McEwen's been here a number of times. John Oates was our headliner. This year, it's Marcus Hummon from Nashville, Grammy award winning songwriter, wrote for Rascal Flatts and the Dixie Chicks and a lot of folks. So this store has been sort of the springboard for a lot of that stuff. And there have been some years it's been tough to keep it going. The recession wasn't great and the pandemic really wasn't great, but I think it's important. And it gives me somewhere to go every day.
I love that. I love live music, and we've talked about that quite a bit on the show. And for me, it's just I wouldn't know what to do without live music. And
I know.
So, what's so important for you to keep bringing live music to the stage?
I think particularly the singer-songwriter format This town has got a little bit older demographic. I'm going to be 69 in the fall. It's that's kind of our age group here. Of course, we have great schools here, young people and all that, but the people with time and disposable income that can go to these shows that we put on really like the stories and songs format, and the idea that they can sit and listen to a songwriter talk about what inspired them to write the song, and then hear it. And I think our tagline is songwriters and the stories, something like the stories that inspired them. People like that, and they've responded to it, and I think it brings everybody closer together. So these are days when we need things that bring us closer together, because there are a lot of people who are invested in splitting us down the middle. It's to their benefit somehow, I guess, but I'm not buying into it. I think we gotta. The more music, the better. That brings folks together.
Amen.
That's the motto for this show. Music as a uniter, and just
Yep.
No matter what our differences are, we're a fan of this band or that band, or as many bands as possible. Live music is just too important.
Right. And we have as much fun sanity as a bunch of older folks can have, But,
I love it, folks. It's out there in Cedaredge, Colorado now. We thank you on behalf of All Over the Place and the Fun Sanity with
Here.
Yeah. Hey, and you guys are always welcome here. If you want to come out, you want to do a show from here, whatever, I can make all that happen. We could set something cool up next year for the Songwriter Festival. It'd be in June next year. So
I appreciate that. And I'm going to keep that in mind, because I'm in Phoenix, and this is when it starts getting really hot here. So I think
come up. It's right. It's going to be 75 degrees today with 10% humidity. Come on up.
Nice.
10% humidity. As a guy who grew up in Ohio, thank you for that.
Yeah, I was in Arkansas. I get it.
Oh,
So,
yeah, 104-degree humidity, and there's still going to be rain. Come on, what?
that ain't right.
No, it is not right. and I want to get back to you as a recovering drummer. I want to throw it over to Jim, because Jim is our skin man in the house. So I want to
cool.
put it on up to him and just see, Jim, what do you think about calling himself a former drummer? Does that really happen?
Oh no, recovering drummer. That's a pretty good descriptor for me too. So I get where you're coming from. I've always loved being a drummer, and it definitely does kind of introduce you to a lot of different aspects of performance in the band from a lot of different angles. Did you feel like that was kind of your entry point into music, and you kind of worked up from there, or is it just something that's kind of always been a part of what you do?
Well, the origins of all that, there was a guitar store in town where I grew up in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and my older brother was taking guitar lessons. He was 3 years older, and I've always looked up to him. We both shared a love of music, even as a little kid. We all saw the Beatles go on Ed Sullivan, and that changed everything for all of us. It was like, well, I want that. That's cool. I didn't even know what it was, but it looked cool. But he was taking guitar lessons, and I bugged my parents. I said, well, I want to take some kind of lesson. I want to be involved. I wanted to be like him. Right. So I thought, well, he's taking guitar, I'll take drums. So I took exactly 6 months worth of drum lessons, and announced to the teacher that I knew what I needed to know at 10 years old. In retrospect, I should have hung around a little longer and taken more lessons. And the only reason I became a singing drummer is, for some reason, I ended up buying a really crummy Shure microphone, the worst one they made back in the late 60s. It had the cable was attached. It didn't even come off. It didn't have a jack or anything. But when we started putting little combos together, I owned the microphone, and they said, well, you're the singer. So, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I don't know about you, I've had a lot of people say to me, well, it's got to be hard to play drums and sing. It never was for me, because that's what I started out doing. And I had this talk with Levon one time. He said, no, you're the drummer is exactly the person that ought to be singing, because you're all the accents, all the pushes, all the really expressive stuff. If you listen to his playing, him singing and playing, it's the only way that stuff could have worked, really. And I grew up playing Earth, Wind and Fire and Average White Band and all that funk stuff. And man, I just loved it. And I still love playing the drums. I just don't get to do it as much. I have a little studio at home with a nice kit set up, and I go out there once in a while and try to play. I try to put a click track on and work on my timing, but boy, that's disappointing sometimes, because That's the one thing I'm a little rusty on is my tempo, but I love playing drums.
Yeah, it can be a little mentally challenging to pull up limb independence and sing at the same time. But once you get good at it, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah,
but,
I wish I was able to do it more often, but for what I do now, I'm a guitar player, I guess, and I love playing guitar. I'm never going to be a virtuoso soloist, but I try to play with expression, and there are guys that inspire me that are super great, fast, crazy good guitar players, but then there are also guys who just play very, very expressively. You got the Gilmore side of things and you got the Steve Lukather side of things. Somewhere in the middle, I just try to say something, but I'm not going to be either one of those guys.
And click track, schmick track. It's got to come from the heart.
I agree. But you go to Nashville and they're going to have that click,
Well, yeah, that's required there, I think.
Yep.
And just very, very quickly, quick little round the horn lightning round right now. Singing drummer, Phil Collins, Don Henley, or Kelly Keagy from Night Ranger. David, you're our guest. You go first. Of those three, who are you going with?
Man, it's hard to beat Phil Collins. Because he's a really, really good drummer. I think Henley's a super solid drummer, and I love his voice so much. The Night Ranger thing, didn't spend as much time listening to those guys, but also very, very good. But that's three good ones. The guy, I forget his name, that played with Rare Earth was the drummer too.
Ooh, okay.
And I forgot the guy's name, but he was one of the guys that inspired me as well. I just figured if other people could do it, I could do it, right?
There you go. Jim, to you, who's your pick?
I got to give the edge to Phil Collins because I like his stuff just a little bit more than Don Henley or Night Ranger, but he's insanely talented, and I feel like he's one of those people that could just do anything in the music world and just and nail it. He's insane.
Yeah, there's a live concert. I put it on sometimes here in the store on YouTube. It was in Paris in the 90s maybe, but he's got him and Chester Thompson both playing drums in the band, and they've got a percussionist between them, and they start the show with a drum solo. And I'm telling you, go watch it because it's inspiring. Because Phil comes out, just starts playing. Chester comes out, and they do a back and forth. Then the percussionist comes out. Then they break into a song. But it's about a 10-minute drum solo to start a show, which is a cool concept, and it really, really works.
That's a bold statement to start with a drum solo, and we're going to be we're all simpatico here. It is unanimous. I go with Phil Collins from that mix as well. He's insane.
Yep, I got it.
And I want to dive a little bit deeper into "Must Be Blue." And again, I mentioned the snarling guitars and especially the hole in the page. I like that song quite a bit. And what was it like for you in terms of coming up with the 10, 11 songs that went into making the new album?
Well, there were, for instance, Whip and Post. I used to play that song some as a drummer back in the day. Always liked the Allman Brothers, so that was one I had in my back pocket for years. And we tried to take that one and make it our own. The ZZ Top tune, Just Got Back from Babies. That's a song I used to go to an open mic when I lived in Little Rock, and I thought, what's a 3-chord thing we can do that the open mic guys can follow? And so I used to do that. I kind of had that one in the back of my mind for a long time. Let's see. Bringing It Back from, the Bringing It Back, which is the J.J. Cale song.
Yeah.
Used to play that in my Aspen days with a friend of mine that we just did a memorial for. Lonesome Train. If you go and look online on YouTube and look up Lonesome Train and Johnny Burnett, that was every bit just a rockabilly tune back in 1956. Our version I learned from a friend of mine over in Grand Junction, Colorado, and I don't know where he came up with it. I think he just made it up, but Eric and I started doing that as a duo. If you can imagine a guitar and a mandolin singing that, rocking tune. But that one's got Rob McNally playing slide on it, and he's played with everybody, but most recently he toured with Bob Seger for a number of years, and he's a super in-demand guy. Ezra Came to Call, my favorite color, Hole in the Page, and I Wait for Mine. Those are all originals. Some of them are older, some of them are newer. But man, I just, whenever I sit down and work on a project, I I make a list of stuff I'm kind of interested in. Then you push some to the side. Maybe they surface later on. But there's a song on here called "Time Is a Thief." There's a band called the Kate Brothers from Northwest Arkansas that I grew up with, and they had a big hit in the '70s called "Union Man" that Steve Cropper produced for them. And I always wanted to cut one of their songs, and that seemed like a good one since we're all getting older and time is indeed a thief. And so I wanted to honor them because they're a big influence on me. But it was just fun putting these together. My co-producer, Mark Prentice, I got to give him some credit, man. He really, really helps me pull this stuff together. So it was so much fun making it. Reese Winans playing keys. Reese played with Stevie Ray Vaughan, and now he plays with Joe Bonamassa. Just there were some people on there that I'd played with before, and he was one I hadn't. So that was fun to have him on the project.
Reese actually got brought up in the show. We talked about power trios, and a power trio that took it to the next level by adding another member. And I made sure to Reese got my nod on that show. Absolutely.
Yeah. He was
Ray and Double Trouble to a whole nother level. So that's very
cool.
And
I've actually talked to Bonamassa about Reese, and he couldn't say enough good stuff. He said, "Man, that guy's such a trip to play with every night." So very fortunate to have all these people on the record. Real lucky.
And you mentioned Bonamassa and Reese, of course. What's the reaction been like in the music community to you doing a little bit more blues than Americana, and just bluesicana, but more of a blues feel? What's it been like for them?
Well, everybody I've talked to has been real supportive. Some are surprised by it. Some are kind of, what took you so long, and the ones that I've played in bands with over the years, they're going, yeah, this is the David we remember, So uniformly positive, I haven't heard a bad whimper from anybody, been real positive. So, and it seems to be getting played, and that's good.
Well, it's good music. We're going to go back to what you and John Oates talked about. Good music
there you
will
go.
get played.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah,
there's a lot. There's a lot that probably doesn't, but this is the first album I've ever done where I had a record company involved. I've always self-produced and self-promoted and all that stuff. And I'm really grateful to Bruce Quattro, and their team is really, really good. Chip's done a great job at promoting, and my team at Richland Group. So I'm real lucky. This is a cool time in my life when I'm letting some of these people do what they do well. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and it's nice. I really feel fortunate.
Well, definitely appreciate that. And again, as I mentioned to you pre-show, I'm glad the Chipsters team introduce you to our show, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm a blues guy at heart, and this is just some music that you kick back, you grab a little scotch, whatever, and just let it flow over you.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you like it.
And we mentioned all the covers that you've done and intermingling with the original stuff. That how do you go about it? Besides, of course, the influence you had, that band from Arkansas you mentioned, and Steve Cropper approved, you got to go with one of those, a band like that. But how do you go about, because you've done the Cars, you've done Gladys Knight, you've done U2, and a couple of Allman Brothers along the way. So how do you go about deciding what kind of cover songs you want to take on?
Well, there are some of them that I've used to play back in the day, and I think back to, fondly on some of those days and back in the bar days. Then there's some that maybe I've always really liked that Cars tune, Drive, that was on the Touchstones record. That's my favorite Cars song. I like Benjamin Orr's voice. I like the production on that. It was just a really, really, really good song. But I always heard it in my head done with acoustic instruments and the mandolin and I don't know. I just heard it in my head. I heard it done differently. And so they just, I guess I've just, I listened to, read a lot of Rick Rubin stuff and listened to his stuff. And one of the things he talks about is just being open, just being receptive, paying attention to what comes your way and not ruling anything out, before you rule it out, explore it, see if it's something that works for you. So when I took that list of stuff in for the cover record and everybody heard the Drive, they went, well, that makes perfect sense. Once you start doing it, it makes perfect sense. But until you just start playing it, So I don't know. I've just try to be open to it and not say no to anything, until you've tried it.
I'm a huge Cars fan, and Ben, you mentioned Ben Orr's voice. Just
Yeah.
I love the arrangement. Well, if I want to hear an original, I'll go listen to an original. I like how you deconstructed that and made it your own. So yeah, kudos
Thank
on
you.
that one. Great choice.
Thanks. The U2 song, I just like that song. And I envisioned it with that fiddle on it at the end. That's Jimmy Mattingly that plays with Garth Brooks. And I had him come in and I said, I just want you to tear this up at the end. And he went, okay. So he did 2 or 3 takes, and I said, that's it, And he said, what made you think of that? And I said, I don't know. I just heard you doing it, So it's interesting because you start thinking of a song and you think, well, if I did that song, I could plug this guy in there and he could do this and they could do that. Mark Prentice's wife is a great vocalist and she sings on all these things. And so I don't know, it's this layered effect, you start thinking of the song and then who could play on it. And pretty soon you've got it all kind of ginned up in your head, but it works.
And aside from the music fest you've got coming into Cedaredge this weekend with the Grand Mesa Songwriters Fest, where else can we look forward to seeing you live playing these new songs and beyond?
I'm going to the Red Lodge Songwriter Festival in a couple of weeks. I've got a little less stuff planned this year, although some things will begin to add on to the schedule. One of the things that happened this year, my wife had some health stuff and I wanted to be around for that early in the year. We wanted to sort that out first quarter. So I didn't get booked myself quite as much. I'll play in a really busy year. I'll play 70 times in a year. And for a guy with a store to run, and I've got some rental properties and construction stuff I do. So that's a lot to be gone and to be out. But I just got back from Scotland and England and Wales. I'll go back to Scotland in July at the end of the year or end of the month to play a festival and some other gigs. I get to Texas quite a bit, but I don't have a Texas run this year. I'll do that again next year. So, I book myself. So I'm always open to somebody wants me to show up and play somewhere. If we can work it out, I'll go, So I travel in a motorhome and I like it that way. It works well.
I hope you make it up here to the Northwest sometime because we really need some blues up here. That's for sure.
So where are you?
I'm in Seattle.
I know I've been up there. I played I've been to Portland. I played on Bainbridge Island a few years ago with a friend up there. So I'll pretty much go anywhere if it makes any sense whatsoever. And sometimes it doesn't even have to make sense.
Well, we'll keep you feeling that Colorado vibe. Got Pine Top here, a little bit north of Phoenix, over there in Payson, right? Or Flagstaff. Ooh, Pepsi Amphitheater. I could see you there.
There you go. I like it.
Outside of Flag. Yes, there we go. See, I'm always thinking of shows, folks, and where to send people. So I'm keeping the fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, and people say, do you want to play for 1,000 people? Well, sure I do. But I'm happy to sit in a room with 30 people that really want to listen. And that's where you connect with people. That's what we did over in Scotland this last trip. In England, played a lot of smaller rooms, but I sold a lot of CDs and made a lot of new fans, and that's how you do it, So,
well, I definitely want to encourage people to head over to davidstarmusic.com. Also, you can follow David on Facebook, X, Instagram, and be sure you check out his YouTube channel as well. And it's all the same. I love the uniformity. It's at David Starr Music. Check this.
I got lucky that worked out. I tried to get davidstarr.com, but there's a wrestler that has that, so I couldn't get that. So don't go there. That ain't me.
No, but, David Starr Music. There you go.
Right.
And don't forget that Starr with 2 R's, much like our good buddy over there from Liverpool, Ringo Starr.
That's
2
it.
stars for David. And last thing I want to ask you, David, is I'm just getting into the music, and for our all over the place audience, our Fun Sanity folks, throw together a 3 to 5 song EP for us across your albums.
Okay.
What is the David Starr sampler that will get people hooked on so much more from it?
Okay, there's a song on an album called The Head and Heart, and there's a song called Edge of the World that people seem to resonates with people. John Oates and I put that one together. There's an album called Beauty and Ruin that was done and inspired by a book my grandfather wrote. It had a lot of good songwriter friends on it that John Oates also produced. There's a song called Rise Up Again on there that I'm really proud of. And then I'd jump out to the Touchstones album and listen to my version of These Days, the old Jackson Browne song. That's one of my favorites. I'd say Hole in the Page is a good one off the brand new album. Then there's an EP called Better Me, and I really like the title cut off of that. So that gives you, a little sampling of some stuff, and it's all on Spotify, it's all on Apple Music, it's all over the place. So hope you listen.
The David Starr sampler, and all over the place, on all over the place. I love it.
That's it.
I love accidental plugs, David. Thank you for that.
What actually was accidental, or was it? I don't know.
Subliminal.
It's the fun sanity. I can't get enough.
It is contagious. Well, David, I definitely want to thank you for stopping and joining us here on all.
Thank you.
Again, folks, check him out on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, at David Starr. Don't forget that's 2 R's in Starr, at David Starr Music. Thank you so much, David. Welcome back anytime. And I think I'll take you up on that offer. Come out next June. Check out.
Let's stay in touch. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, David. Hope your wife's feeling better.
She's doing good. It's just one of those things you got to wait and see, and then we're all good.
Great. Glad to hear it.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. All right, take care, everyone. We'll be back real soon on All Over the Place. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
All over the place, where the fun sanity never ends.